Sedona, Arizona. Jennifer Wesselhoff, the president and CEO of Visit Sedona and the Sedona Chamber of Commerce, is joining us. And Jen, I know that your organization is kind of unique in the regard that you have kind of a blended approach where you're filling the role of both a tourism bureau and a chamber of commerce. How are you kind of building coalitions in your community and working to plan for that recovery as your community prepares to welcome back travelers?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share our perspective and what we're doing here in Sedona with the group. Today, I really wanted to focus sort of on three main categories of what we're doing: communication, data, and hope. And first, as it relates to communication, it's very similar to some of the other speakers. As a Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau, it gives us distinct opportunities to really garner input from our businesses. So communication with our businesses has been incredibly important throughout this whole pandemic. Sharing information, partnering on educational webinars with our local community college, with the SBA, with the Small Business Development Center, and really just help the business community try to manage their expectations a little bit in terms of what reopening looks like. We're asking them for a lot of feedback. We're engaging them whenever possible, and asking them what are their plans for safety as it relates to reopening. Because ultimately our community, our communication strategy to businesses, to visitors, and to locals is really an effort to try to answer the question of how do we balance the risk to lives versus the risk to livelihoods. And I think it was Andy that mentioned, you're either in one camp or the other camp, that we're opening too soon or we're opening too slowly. And our communications efforts to those three target audiences has really been an effort to try to find the middle ground and try to move people towards the middle. Through consensus building and planning and sharing information. We developed some talking points for our board members, stakeholders, and community leaders as it relates to that middle ground. And we'll talk a little bit about that, some of the points in that in point number 2, because data really drives a lot of that conversation. But really trying to focus on what our community and our businesses can do to keep their employees safe, their customers safe, and ultimately the community safe, because our locals are extremely stressed out about opening too soon and having other states that may still have a stay-at-home order, like California, which is our number 2 overnight market, what impacts they're going to have on our community. So really trying to communicate to our locals what we are doing and what we aren't doing is just as important, that they know what our efforts are in terms of a measured approach, and communicating that same message with our businesses so that they know that we are not going to jump right back into a 70% occupancy. I mean, right now Sedona's at about a 10 or 11% occupancy right now. And in order to be safe and responsible, we need to take the recovery a little bit more slowly. So just communicating those expectations from the very beginning with the businesses and the locals are really important. We participated in a joint statement that was a regional statement of all of our regional mayors and chambers of commerce about safety being the first priority as we begin to reopen the economy. And Arizona is also, just to let you know, in a little unusual period right now, because technically our governor's executive order to stay at home is scheduled to expire at the end of the day tomorrow. And he has not made an announcement yet about what reopening looks like, or if he's going to extend the executive order for a bit more time. So we're in a little bit of an unknown period, and have been really for the last week, of businesses wanting to get prepared to open as of May 1st, because that's when the executive order expires, but also not knowing what that looks like from a state level. So it's a bit of a challenge. Our communication to visitors has really just been aspirational and inspirational, providing all of our virtual services, answering questions. You know, most of our visitor questions are all about, I'm scheduled to come visit in June. What will Sedona be like then? And, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know if we're going to be open in May, if we're going to be open in June. So really just trying to give them the best information that we have available, driving them to what is open right now, and using our website as the best tool for that. And then we're also starting to think about, what does reopening our physical visitor center look like? What does that look like? We're installing some plexiglass to divide sort of the workers and the visitors, and developing a plan of, you know, counting the number of people who go in, providing masks, you know, doing all the things that we'll be expecting our entire community to do. But it's just going to be so different as we phase that approach. The second thing I just really wanted to talk about is data, and using our communications with our businesses and our relationships and partnerships regionally to collect data, because data is king. You know, surveying the partners, the businesses, to find out what they are planning, who has applied for funds, who has received funds, how many people they've laid off. The issue that we're facing and have faced for the last month is that things are just moving so quickly that we don't have a good handle on what is really happening. We have a lot of anecdotal information. So data has been king. It's allowed us to go back to our congressmen and our senators and say, hey, look, only 40% of the people who have applied have gotten money from the government. And they need that information in order to get funds moving at the congressional level. So data has been incredibly important. The weekly Smith Travel research information has been helpful, because we were able to then look at, okay, the last 28 days in 2019, Sedona served about 300,000 visitors. And the same 28-day period, we were at 30,000. So a 90% decline in visitors. And it's data like that that gives us the tools to go back to the community to say, look, this isn't sustainable. Maybe 300,000 isn't where we want to get back to. We agree, we're not ready for that, but 30,000 is not sustainable. And so data is really giving us the opportunity to provide some of these talking points to find some balance to recover, and balance to find some of that middle ground. And then lastly, a lot of our efforts have been around providing hope. Hope to our businesses and our residents, you know, really making sure that they know that we have the best interests of not just the businesses, but the community at large. When there are a lot of unknowns, there's a ton of fear, and fear brings out crazy, angry emotions. And we don't want any potential visitors who may be here to be the target of local residents who may be upset that we have people visiting from California or outside of the state. So we're illustrating that we have a plan. We also put together a Sedona Tourism Economic Recovery Task Force, which is giving people the opportunity to provide input to our plan, and it gives us the opportunity to share the research that we know, or that at least we're hearing in terms of tourism. And it also helps give a unified message that's really future focused and really responsible and measured. So, I mean, we know that the government is trying to find a middle path. We think it can be done, but it won't be done without controversy. My hope is that despite all of these difficulties, we can still remain strong and do what's best for our community, trusting that in the end we'll be stronger and more unified as a community in the long run. So
Wonderful.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. I know